I had been muted all that time. My bad, everybody. Sorry for talking to the void. Let's get ourselves started. Let's go ahead and get a bag going of the banana punch that starting to run low on, but have enough to get us through this stream here. Try to wake up while that's inflating. Awesome. All right, well, first bag of the stream, banana punch, 30%, 31% THC. Thanks, Gonzo Baptist. Welcome, by the way. That stance, I call that the impatient middle-aged lady stance. That is the I don't normally have to wait this long to get my coffee stance. I've been working on it. It's sort of my Blue Magnum. Is that what it's called from Zoolander, I think? Is that Derek Zoolander's signature look? Except mine is not sexy. It's kind of repellent. Thanks. Well, I appreciate that, Gonzo Baptist. That just confirms, you know, I'm absolutely putting out, you know, the message I'm trying to convey gets across, and that's. I'd like to speak to your manager, please. Never, Gonzo Baptist. Never. I never. I'm not one who takes offense very easily. Well, welcome, Tom A. Good to see you again, man. How are you doing today? Well, we got this first bag started before dedicating it to anybody, but of course it has to go to Gonzo Baptist because he's first up. Tom A. will get to our second bag pretty quick, and we'll dedicate that one to you because that's our thing now. Not too much, man. Everything's good. About to spend a couple days out in Joshua Tree, I think, starting Saturday. Spend a weekend out there with an old friend of mine. Looking forward to that. So I will be busy for the next couple of days. Won't be streaming any in the future, but very much looking forward to it. I appreciate that, man. Thank you, Gonzo Baptist. All right. First bag done. Let's try to stand more neutrally. But I do also like this. I mean, is that how it was, or was it more? It was over this way. I think it was showing more thigh too. Okay, Lahoma. Never misspelled Oklahoma when you had to learn how to spell states, thanks to that song. Some other real tricky ones that we've figured out with cool mnemonics. MISSISSIPPI. I hope I didn't mess that up. There's also a fancy one from where I'm from in Tennessee. TNNEESSE, something like that. I probably missed. Surely those all can't be doubles. But something like that. Mnemonics for learning how to spell states, whether it comes from, I guess in the sense of the musical Oklahoma. Well, I guess most times you're just spelling them out phonetically, but adding a little rhythm to it, which still makes them mnemonics, I think. does mnemonic mean simply some kind of device that helps you remember things, or is it specifically like a way of shortening, abbreviating things to help you remember things, like and every good boy does fine for music or whatever, learning those lines? Or is it mnemonic, is it that sort of abbreviation, or can it just be any device utilized to help one with memory? Well, that seems pretty broad too. Tom asks if I'm going with some mushrooms. I wish I had some mushrooms with me. It seems the appropriate thing. But I don't have a mushrooms connection, unfortunately, unless I can find one very quickly. But no mushrooms, but plenty of weed, though, for sure. Have you ever been to Joshua Tree yourself, Tom? It looks like maybe you have, if you're saying you've been there with some peyote, which is the truly authentic experience. And did you guys know that peyote is sort of one of the most, comes from one of the sort of most important First Amendment cases to the Supreme Court in the past, well, I guess it would be 30 years ago now. Some Native Americans, I can't remember which tribe, and I apologize for that, sued because they got arrested or their peyote confiscated, which they used for religious purposes, or that was their claim, that they used peyote for spiritual purposes, for ancient rituals, and they, of course, got in trouble because peyote is a federally banned substance. It ended up going all the way up to the Supreme Court, and a lot of familiar faces, well, I guess there aren't that many familiar faces left from the 90s Supreme Court now, but certainly, well, Thomas. I guess that's it from the 90s. Anyways, neither here nor there. I think Thomas is a guy who now says anything in the name of religious freedom. You know, you can, any objection in the name of religious freedom. But back then, when it was a bunch of Native Americans asking to smoke peyote because it is a thing that had been important to them for certainly longer than any ancestral traditions that Clarence Thomas would be involved in, he was like, no, that's fucking bullshit, you dumb drug addicts. Get out of here with your stupid-ass reasoned arguments. This is America, damn it. You're free to do as I say. Ah, Clarence Thomas. What a lovely human being. Anyways, Tom says, when/if he has some money laying around, the volcano is on his list. Well, I hope a windfall is in your future, Tom, and a big old wad of $100 bills just, you know, spontaneously generates in your pockets, and you can get yourself a volcano. We love talking about it here on Weeds. We won't go over it too much, but while expensive, it I mean, I just can't think of any other thing other than actual pure glass that I've had for as long as I've had my volcano, 6.5 years, I think, something like that, and have it work just as reliably and wonderfully. Not to go over it anymore, but I knock on wood for you, Tom. Celtic Tech, Viking, or Vicky and Benji, welcome back, man. Good to see you. It's been a while. Since it's been a while, been very sick. I apologize. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Celtic Tech. I hope that was a while ago. I hope you're doing better now. If not, I hope, you get through it soon, and I'm glad you're here hanging out. Hopefully we can make things nice and chill for you. Celtic Tech says they took a 150 milligram Rick Simpson oil dose about an hour ago, kicking in now. That sounds great, my friend. Nice high milligrammage. You're probably going to feel pretty nice, hopefully taking away any kind of pain or things that you use your RSO for. And again, thanks for being here. Tom Tom says, I haven't, but I've read many stories, and that the government should never, I think in reference to a Joshua Tree. I've only been the one time I went for a nice long vacation a couple of years ago, and had a wonderful time, and that was just myself and my partner. So going with an old friend, really looking forward to it. It is a pretty wonderful place. It deserves its sort of, what would you describe Joshua Tree's vibe as? Hippie, like sort of ultra hippie, but ultra also growingly very sort of chic. I mean, it's becoming very trendy. That's not the reason to go there, but a wonderful, weird place in the middle of the desert. And unfortunately, one of the areas targeted for, well, I don't know if target is the right verb, but predicted by, I think, like 2050 that Joshua Tree in the summer will routinely have days at like 125 degrees Fahrenheit every day for months on end, and could approach higher than the highest recorded highs ever, things in like Death Valley, California, looking, you know, again in the 2050, 2060 time range, and at some point be so hot as to be literally not just inhospitable, but like, you know, certain areas in the Gobi or Sahara, essentially unlivable. The costs of trying to live in a place where being outside with, you know, 10 minutes exposure to the sun will kill you. That's really sad, and hopefully not a foregone conclusion, but woof, who knows? Okay. Looks like Celtic Tech is agreeing with Tom about the sentiment that the government should never be allowed to tell an adult what they can put in your body. Hard to think of any counterexamples to such a sort of what's the term? Where something is self-evident. I'm sorry. Like what you said is just totally self-evident. It seems absolutely true on its face that as long as what you are putting in your body, it seems unreasonable for somebody to tell you not to do that. But what do I know? I'm an idiot. Oh, it looks like we've got Stephanie joining us in chat, and Grovel as well. Oh my God, some real heavy hitters all back to back. All the mods right there. Not all of them, but close. Good to see you, Stephanie, Celtic Tech, and Grovel. Thanks for being here, guys. Let's get through this second bag of Tom A's here. Celtic Tech says it's been 91 there in Florida, but feels like 100. Brutal, brutal, brutal. Man, luckily I live in an area that has traditionally, historically, wonderfully nice weather, and so far the most harmful side effects of climate change haven't really affected where I live. But man, yeah, if you lived in areas with already extreme climates, or the propensity to have very high or very low temperatures, it's going to be rough going forward. Not to spend too much time on the topic of climate change. All right. Celtic Tech says they appreciate the person who invented AC. Wonderful sentiment. I said I was going to get off the topic of air conditioning. Or air conditioning, climate change, which I will. But I'm going to share a really fun, well, maybe morbid, and maybe not fun nor morbid fact with you about air conditioning after we finish this bag and go get our third one. third bag here, we'll say we'll dedicate this one to all of our wonderful chat moderators that all came. Stephanie, Celtic Tech, and Grovel. Thanks for joining us. We'll do bag number 3 for you guys as we talk about air conditioning. And I'm going to do a bit of live fact checking so I don't actually misspeak about actual numbers, but I want to make sure I get it right. So percentage of world's energy consumption. Okay, here's a sad fact about air conditioning, and it is a paradox. Well, not a paradox, but a definitely not a paradox. Just a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing about air conditioning and the sort of perversity of it, which is right now air conditioning takes about 10% of the world's energy usage, which includes, cars and vehicles and anything that takes energy in any format. Air conditioning is using already about 10% of it, and as the world gets warmer and people get wealthier, and the people who stand to get the amount of wealth that they can afford an air conditioning that they wouldn't have one already are people generally around the equator, which have historically, for a variety of reasons, been lower socioeconomic, like a low socioeconomic band around the globe is right there around the equator. It's just this weird but known historical phenomenon. Countries around the equator are generally less economically productive. So those countries are also the ones that are going to warm the most, if you believe climate change exists. And those places also are the ones that are now starting to see their standards of living rise the highest and the fastest, now that a lot of Asia, sort of not tropical Asia, has already been lifted out of poverty. Those areas of the country are now sort of seeing the benefits of globalization at the highest, most rapid rates, which means they're getting money, which is great and wonderful in a variety of ways, but in some bad ways means they can afford some of the greatest Western luxuries, the things that we've had forever and take really, take for granted, which are things like air conditioning, and means that those people are now buying air conditioning at an ever increasing rate, and by like 2050, air conditioning might be like 20 or 25% of the world's energy usage. And the weird thing is, of course, you can just sort of graph energy usage with carbon emissions, and you can sort of chart those things to how much hotter things are going to be. So as people use air conditioning, it makes the planet warmer, which makes people use air conditioning more, which makes the planet warmer, which makes people use air conditioning more. And it is a bad scene, and it's why things like swamp coolers, heat inverters, are probably going to be the future, because they're like great air conditioners, but run at like half as much energy or a third as much energy or something. Sorry, that was a very dumb, long explanation, but it is a really bad cycle in the world of carbon emissions is air conditioning. It's great that so many people who live in areas of the world that need air conditioning the most are able to get it now more than ever before, but at the same time, that is going to lead to those areas of the world becoming even hotter and those people needing air conditioning even more. They call one of those a good old-fashioned vicious cycle. I'm sure I explained it poorly, but air conditioning, it's great, wonderful, love to have it. I have not actually had an air conditioning since I moved to Southern California, where I've never owned a place that has had AC, or lived in a place, not owned, rented or whatever. Luckily, I live in Long Beach. They're only like 3 days a year. It's above 90 degrees, so it's mostly fine. But man, if I lived in Florida, I honestly don't know how you could live in Florida and not have air conditioning. I know that that scenario exists, but it is dangerous. Heat waves kill a shit ton of people. There was like the one in 2001 in Europe, in France, killed like hundreds, if not thousands, of elderly people. They're bad scenes. Air conditioning, it's great, but also a vicious cycle. All right, Euphorium, welcome back. Good to see you, man. Thanks for joining us again. Celtic Tech says June, July, and August are all hell there. I imagine. Actually, where I grew up in East Tennessee, August and September were always the worst for there. Like September, you just think of it as fall. So like psychologically, I think we just believe it's cooler than it is. I actually don't know the data to back this up, but it seemed like back then September was routinely hotter than July, even if we had these associations with September as fall, which fall means cool, even if that doesn't actually bear out in the number of days over 90 or whatever. Euphorium with the German, Guten Tag to yourself. Celtic Tech says, I'm sure I'm contributing a lot to that because I never turn off my AC now during the hot months. Stays on 24/7. Well, how could you not, Celtic Tech? And I am sorry if you, and to anybody who took that as a criticism, if I had AC, even though it's only like 68 degrees out here right now, it would be on. It's too wonderful not to have. I would be using it all the time. I do not mean to disparage anybody who uses such a luxury. It's wonderful, and I mean, we are so used to it at this point. It's hard to imagine a life without it. And again, that's from coming from somebody who, you know, it's 68 and sunny and breezy out, not almost 100, like for you in Florida. You've got to use your AC to survive, but hopefully we can get some AC systems that are efficient and powerful and won't all roast us. But until that time comes, for your very survival, keep it blasting. And it's not like people are using their air conditioning willy-nilly, especially energy prices rising across the country in a variety of different ways. So AC ain't cheap either for people. Again, why it's been slow adoption in the developing world. Not because they don't want it or need it, but because they can't afford it. Celtic Tech says they know a couple here in Florida that have no AC, and they are always suffering in the summer, but they are young, and that helps. Yes, it does. Being young helps a lot. And again, I totally apologize to you, Celtic Tech, if I made it seem like I was being critical about your AC usage. In no way, shape, or form. My bad. Even if you didn't need it for very valid medical reasons, nobody should have to be miserable inside of their own home for 99% of the day. Like, it's absolutely not a criticism. And I hope you stay nice and cool there in Florida, unlike your young couple. As we said, though, heat is a killer for people who are older or infirmed in any way. It is a unremarked often killer in terms of how detrimental it can be to your health. Extreme temperatures for people who, again, are older or infirmed in some way. Oh, well, cool. I'm glad to hear it, Celtic Tech. All right, well, let's move on from air conditioning and climate change. Get through this bag for our cool chat mods out there. And move on to greener pastures. I'm gonna power through here. Excuse me. What's up, Tony? Good to see you again, man. And then we've got Alexander McPherson. I don't think we've met before. Saying, Alexander McPherson asks, "What the fuck are you smoking?" Which, boy, without any inflection, that's just such a great internet sentence. I interpreted it like it comes across as hostile. I'm not saying it is at all, but like the way I read it also sort of intoned the hostility that seemed to come out. Like, dog, like, man, what the fuck is it that you are smoking? But it could very well just as legitimately be like, hey man, what the fuck are you smoking on? Like a very cordial thing. We just never know with text. But I'll interpret it as you're being a very nice guy. Well, man, I'm smoking the fuck on, what was this? Banana Punch. 31-ish% THC. Have an ounce of it. That'll take me another couple of days to get through. Hope you're doing well, Mr. McPherson, or Miss McPherson, or whatever, however your honorific you want. The real Cynthia says, huffing is wrong. Well, hello, the real Cynthia. Huffing is wrong, I guess. To be fair, I'm not huffing, I'm inhaling. I think huffing is like, what is huffing? Oh, huffing is like where you take in something in a bag or some kind of sealed device, like and then put some kind of inhalant in it and then breathe in that. Is that huffing? Which is very reminiscent of this, except there's not a full seal around my mouth and nose, just my mouth. But I would also say you're probably right, Cynthia, if you want to say that just seems like semantics. In which case I'll say, sure, I'll accept your judgment, but interesting that you ended up here, and welcome. We're glad that you're here, even if you think huffing is wrong, even though we're inhaling. Glad to have you. Tony says, brisk gang, that's what time it is. Are you still enjoying the best brisk, the strawberry melon, Tony? I usually, when I pick up my brisk run, I have a little, I have a convenience store very close by me that holds it. I usually go with a 2 to 1 ratio of brisks, 2 pinks to 1 other flavor, because pink is so much superior. But I do like a little variety, so I went 2 pinks to 1 red today, as my 2 to 1 ratio. Sometimes it's green, occasionally yellow, but it's always 2 pinks. Oh, shit. Oh, that's even worse. I was sitting here going 2 pinks, 2 pinks, 2 pinks, and then I went, oh, shit. What a shocker that I would say all of that unaware. And I really was totally unaware. But the word shocker there was self-aware. So, but everything else, I was saying 2 pinks, 2 pinks, 2 pinks, all without even realizing how ridiculous that sounds. And I think I was even doing a hand gesture, sort of something vulgar. Anyways, Alexander McPherson says, well, yeah, my bad. I meant it in a good way. Well, of course you did it, Alexander McPherson, because you're a good guy. You're a great dude. And I should never have impinged? Any sort of meaning upon your sentence. I have no idea why I was like, oh boy, what the fuck am I smoking? But it is Banana Punch. And I'm so glad you're here. As a matter of fact, I'm so glad you're here, Alexander. This next fourth bag will be for you. Here we go. More than once, I've left one of these bags on here too long. A little fire and forget scenario. Like, oh, I can make it to the sink and back before, I can go grab a drink and back before this bag inflates. But then when I go to the kitchen to grab a drink, there's some other distraction there. And then, about 15 seconds later, there's going to be a very urgent reminder coming throughout your house that you fucked up. And that urgent reminder is this frantic sound of plastic stretching beyond its capacities. Every bag that I have at some point starts smaller, and then I'll leave it on there for too long, and the areas where it's crimped at the ends will pull at the little devices because it just, like an overripened balloon. I don't think I've ever popped one or, I actually assume the pressure would build up enough it would just pop the bag off at some point instead of popping the bag off the oven instead of splitting it. But I don't ever intend to find out because that seems stupid. Anyways, Alexander, this is for you. Glad you could join us. Tom, answering the question, what is it that one huffs? And he says, whippets, I think. Whippets are the, I'm not saying this disparagingly, but where I know that they're the gay sex drug, like the things you inhale, like, they're like, cleaners or something. Is that it? Poppers. Or is that, no, whippets. No, I'm sorry. Shit, that's poppers. My God, do I get these all mixed up. Poppers is the one you inhale, like a muscle relaxant that, I only assume I think I know why it's the gay sex drug. I mean, I think there are a lot of those, but like one that is famously associated. I only think I know why it's popular, but I don't actually, and it seems insensitive to ask. But I do have a suspicion. And whippets are, that's laughing gas, right? The whipped cream, or the little aluminum things you see everywhere. And I mean everywhere. The little vials that you use, the whipped cream things, right? That's whippets. Shit. Boy, I don't know my drugs. The real Cynthia says, what you're doing is huffing. God save your soul. Oh boy, yeah. It would, God, you're gonna have your work cut out for me on, for you on this one. Which, if you're omnipotent, you should surely, or like all-powerful, omnipotent is just all-knowing, but if you're all-powerful, surely you could just make me save my soul because you could do anything, but you choose not to, even though my fate is both entirely up to me, but yet also ordained by God. I've never quite understood so many of these things, but you're right. The real Cynthia, if there is a hell, I cannot wait to go there. Satan seems like a real cool dude. Can't wait to have a beer with him. And I don't even like beer. I don't drink. But I would break that for my boy, Mr. S. Hope to meet him one day. Don't really believe in him, but I think he seems like a more fun guy than God, to be honest. Like, if I could choose a dude to like, if I could choose between what Christians say, like, or what the majority of people in America who call themselves Christian believe a God to be, and all that, and what it all entails, and like what a Satan is, and what all that entails. And I'm not talking about like what's, written in biblical scripture or whatever, but just sort of their sort of pop culture identities. The ones that everybody conjures in their head in this country, which again aren't reflective of the source material probably, but well, hell, it definitely isn't. That's all comes from what's his name, Dante and shit. Or is that Mills with like Beyond? I can't remember. We don't need a theology argument, but like Satan seems just like generally a more fun guy than God. And I hate to say it, but again, it's hard to say that I think either of them really exist, and that's even overselling my position here. But if I did, I'd be hanging with Mr. S. Okay. Mara Vioso, welcome. I'm so sorry that I butchered that. Memento says, what are you talking about? Can you explain? I'm so sorry. I probably could have, but I don't know how long ago we were talking about what it was that you were mentioning. If you bring it up again, I will try to mention it. So, and then we see that, yes, we're talking some strains that we're doing here. Celtic Tech, vaping some Scarlet Black, nice. And Tom A doing some very classic Strawberry Cough. Never heard of Scarlet Black. Also, what does that mean? That's like saying crimson. What's another term for black? It's just like two colors. I guess it just means a blend of those. So dark red, maybe. I don't know. That's got to be what that means. I hope it's good. Either way. Celtic Tech says they know a person who has done whippets, never understood why people do it. That's true for a lot of things. I think many people... Well, I think it's also a big-time party drug, whippets. Especially if you live in a city, you will find them often around parties and clubs, little nitrous oxide canisters. So I think if it's laughing gas, I have definitely had nitrous oxide before when I was a child at like getting oral surgery, and it was awesome. So I guess I get it, but I think you would want it sustained and not just like from a whipped cream thing. But yeah, nitrous oxide. There's a reason it's the drug of choice for little children. I guess because it's harmless. I think that's why. Tom has never tried it, and it's one of the few things he never has, which is always which seems crazy, not in your case, but just generally, that because it's gotta be one of the most legal drugs that there is and always has been. Like, I think you can do it with not like a can of ready-made, I think. It is also propulsed by the same stuff. So it's just curious that way more high schoolers haven't just tried it out of curiosity because they can. I actually don't know that for sure, and I certainly don't advise anybody to experiment. Elaine, welcome back, says hell is heavy metal, booze, weed, and orgies. Well, that sounds wonderful. That is certainly, a one vision of hell, and one that sounds quite fun. But the great thing about hell is it's all somebody's vision. Started with Dante, and we sort of borrowed all that iconography and grafted things on, reinterpreted it as needed here and there. But I guess you could say since its inception, it's been a interpretation of one's vision of either bitchin', rockin' shit or eternal damnation. And I can also see how those two things can exist in two different human beings' mind. That one person's heaven is another person's hell. How trite. Okay. Tony says, in reference, I think, to whippets, people usually do them with their other drugs like cannabis, MDMA, LSD to boost their high. Oh, interesting. So like I was going to come up with an Irish car bomb where you take your alcohol with your alcohol. I guess a different drug, though, so that metaphor broke down instantly. Bully. Celtic Tech says they would rather microdose themselves some shrooms than be doing nitrous oxide all the time. Well, I think that should research suggesting in a lot of very positive ways the benefits of microdosing, low amounts of psychedelics seems to have genuine boosts to mood and all kinds of variables on every different metric of mental health, and legitimate research. We can all thank our favorite author Michael Pollan and his great book How to Change Your Mind, for changing a lot of people's minds about psychedelics as an actual therapeutic. Laughing gas, I just think you do to, I don't know if it has any other therapeutic benefits other than it just makes you feel good. So if you're going to do something constantly, microdosing seems to be the one more beneficial for, your well-being than just laughing gas. Although I think nitrous oxide, as long as you don't kill yourself because you go brain dead because you don't have any oxygen, because you've just been sucking nitrous oxide for a long time, I think is totally harmless, which is, again, why they give it to children at the dentist, which is wild. I mean, I think I had it like 2 or 3 times growing up, and it was, it was an intense experience. Anyways, let's get through our bag number 4 here that we are doing for, oh my god, I forgot, and my chat program won't let me scroll up. Wait, there it goes. Alexander, our friend Alexander, new friend. Okay. While we're talking about interesting, weird, fun psychological experiments and altered states and all kinds of fun, weird things, I'm going to finish this bag, and then I am going to tell this story of, well, yeah, I'll just save it for our last bag. Realizing at the age of like 34 that I had a thing as a kid that I didn't realize, and how weird it was growing up and reading something and going, oh my god, that was bizarre. But I'll save it for oven chamber here. That's what I'm doing. Should have been explaining. Gonna clear this out for our next bag. Almost ready. Turn the temperature down. Nice. Okay. Should be good. Load her up. All right, we're almost ready here. And before story time, we have to dedicate a bag to somebody out there in Chatland. Lot of chatter about still what, and thank you so much, by the way, Tony, for explaining to everybody, being way more on it about what actually laughing gas is and nitrous oxide is and what is happening with that experience than I was. I appreciate that. Looks like we also have Tom again recommending mushrooms. I'll save my one. I think I've only done mushrooms once. I'll save my one mushroom experience for later. Not that it's a fun one. It's not bad. It's just unexciting. Nothing really happened. So there it is. Cut that. Still have my other thing I promised to tell. Welcome back, Euphorium. Never heard of LSA. I assume it's probably a new drug of some kind that has yet to be banned. A lot of those. Okay, our good friend, Dr., and I'm going to have to say it because, unfortunately, I do love saying it, even though we all know it's a naughty word. Dr. Smegma Jones, this bag is for you. Thank you for joining us. You know I love your name, even if I probably won't say it as often. I can't promise I won't, though, because I do love saying it, even though I have to pretend like I don't. Wow. All right, so Smegma Jones. Whoops, already broke my promise. This bag is for you. Here we go. As a youngster, and I think maybe it started around the age of 10 or so. I don't honestly know. Infrequently, but not extremely rarely. I don't know a frequency. Let's say an average of twice a month. That might be slightly high. I don't know. Right before I would fall asleep at night, I would have this wild, crazy, weird experience briefly. And it just was, okay, the experience was, and I just never told anybody about it as a kid because I just didn't want people to think I was totally, bought the funny farm, whatever sort of tortured metaphor you want for being not right. But it also just didn't bother me ever, and it was always so short, and it was never that. It wasn't unpleasant what came. So I just was like, and it happened so infrequently and so randomly and so quickly. I just never really told anybody because it just seemed impossible to even explain. But what it was again, start around maybe the age of 10. Right before I would fall asleep. And this is not like the myclonic kick or myclonic jerk. I can't remember exactly how you say it. The thing where when you are asleep, but you feel like you're falling and you kick and you wake up sort of with a physical reaction. Not that at all. Totally conscious. But the moment right before I would fall asleep, I would have this extremely powerful, like, sensation, even though I knew it wasn't happening, but it just felt like it was, that my body was shrinking, and then it would shrink down to an incredibly tiny size, and then it would just expand. Like I would feel my body expand beyond the length of the bed that I was in. And there was like a sense of time dilation. I never knew how long this whole thing was. It felt pretty quick. I couldn't really move when it was happening, but it wasn't like, oh God, I can't move, I'm trapped. It felt not like, oh, this feels awesome, but it was like, oh, this is kind of fun in a weird way. It was like, this is odd. And then it would be over, and then I would be asleep pretty quickly thereafter, and then it would never happen again until like 2 weeks later, and then it would happen, and that would be it. And all those things happen every time. The older I got, the more infrequent it would happen. By the time I was in high school, or by the time I graduated high school, it only happened maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And then the last time I ever remember it happening, happened only like twice when I was in college. It only ever happened one time when I was a grown adult living in my sort of own place. I was probably like 26 was the last time it ever happened. And I totally forgot about it. However, one time I was talking with my partner about something about being a kid. I was like, oh, here's this crazy thing that happened to me when I was a kid. I can't even, I'm not even sure I can explain this. And I just told her about it. And I was like, how, that's just so weird. I wonder if anybody else ever happened to have anything like this. So I just Googled feeling of sensation of growing and shrinking before falling asleep. And there, sure enough, is this very rare neurological condition with a 100% appropriate name that I, of course, never thought of myself. And it's harmless, and it just like happened with me. Goes away when you get older, just sort of stops happening. Everybody who has it sort of says like doesn't really bother them. They kind of found it weird, and most people don't tell people about it because it's just so strange. It's called, appropriately enough, Alice in Wonderland syndrome. As you might know, if you know the source material, you're growing, you're shrinking, you're growing, you're shrinking, and it's similar for everybody who has it. Again, oh, and they think that Lewis Carroll had it himself, and he sort of wrote about it later, and may have even inspired, of course, Alice in Wonderland and that concept. I never read Alice in Wonderland as a kid, so I wasn't totally aware of it. Hadn't actually seen the Disney cartoon, but was aware of it as I was older. Anyways, just a fascinating thing. Hopefully it doesn't mean anything bad for my future. I don't think anybody who's ever had it has had any complications with it later. No idea where it comes from. No idea why it manifests. No idea why it's so incredibly specific. This weird sensations, this out-of-body experience, all of that stuff. Anyways, it was fun finding out. It was like, oh shit, this is. I don't know. It was an odd feeling. Like this is a thing. Weird. Anyways, Alice in Wonderland syndrome, a thing I had as a child, and no longer do. Fun story, I hope. So, chat. Celtic Tech saying microdosing with shrooms is helping a lot of people with depression. Seems to be very true, and holding up better than. And I don't mean this in like the conspiratorial or the like screw big pharma way. Not that there aren't valid reasons for having those sentiments, and not that I don't have some of them myself. But very legitimate. See earlier comments about Michael Pollan, everybody's favorite buttoned up New York Times bestseller, exploring this himself and coming, also poring over the scientific evidence. And coming to the same conclusions. yeah, I hope it becomes way more acceptable in way more places in the very near future. I'm hoping California remembers its, progressive drug legislative pioneering days and stops ceding weed legislative pioneering spirit to our neighbors to the north, who are now decriminalizing vast swaths of things and even legalizing, some hallucinogenics for pharmaceutical purposes. Hopefully, we catch up. I assume it's going to happen. It seems like low hanging. I was gonna say mushrooms, but that's. It's not even just too easy. It's embarrassing, but let's get there. Lots more talk about mushrooms and how awesome they are, and making me sad that I won't have any for Joshua Tree. Euphorium says, found a very old found in morning glory seeds used by the Aztecs and other indigenous people. LSA you're referring to. LSA was chemically discovered by the same guy who discovered LSD, Dr. Hoffman, and his bicycle trip. I think talked about in How to Change Your Mind, the Michael Pollan book as well. But of course, one of the most famous, and not just famous, and not apocryphal. I think really did happen. Like the dude really did lick his thing and get high as balls on a bike trip. Changed the course of history. That dude, Dr. H. Bravo to you. This bag is for whoever it was for. Oh, Smegma. Shit. But if it wasn't, it would be for Dr. Ross. Fet J, welcome, Fet J. Fet J says he calls the next bag. Well, that seems like, can't go back on that. So once we get to our next and probably final, we'll give that one to you. Fet J says he's talking about his DMT trip, the good old days. Oh, Tom A says lucid dreaming. No, not lucid dreaming. What I just said, not. I wish I could lucid dream. Not lucid dreaming. Seems like lucid dreaming. Maybe adjacent to lucid dreaming, but it is something you are totally conscious for and not dreaming. It is, however, Tom A, much more similar to sleep paralysis than it is lucid dreaming. Hello, Lil Peach Music. Thanks for joining us in Twitch. I'm glad you're here. Bet you this next bag is for you. Tom A, I know this because, unfortunately, I have had sleep paralysis twice in my life in a period of time where, not a great sleeper to begin with, but I was sleeping even more poorly. Sleep paralysis is I've talked about it on weeks before. I'll go over it very briefly because you mentioned it and it's fun to talk about. It is one of those things that's like, oh shit, okay, yes, I now understand how my brain works against me, that I can't 100% trust anything that I once thought to be rock-ribbed reality to be foundational, things that I just know not to be true. Even as I know them not to be true, I can just override whatever part of my brain that is and say, no, you really are doomed. I had the only one incident of sleep paralysis with the actual, just as the way it's often described, a demonic presence. Again, let me be very clear. I absolutely know none of this happened and was even as I was under the effects of sleep paralysis, which is being awake but unable to move your body, and sort of experiencing yourself from a almost out of body like experience, and it's never pleasant. Only the other time I had it had the other big symptom, which is just your body is paralyzed, which can make some people panic because you're trying to desperately move your arm or hand or whatever, and you can't. And because fortunately I knew had heard of sleep paralysis when I had it, so I wasn't actually panicked. I was like, oh, I know what this is. I have not slept in a long time. This is sleep paralysis. So the first time wasn't bad. The second time, however, where the other awful thing that happens with sleep paralysis is, and they think it might be because whatever part of your brain that has trapped you in your body, but you are still consciously aware of the outside of the world. It seems like a flimsy theory to me, but whatever part of that, your consciousness that has already sort of is the thing that is, you have this out-of-body experience with sleep paralysis. And so it already feels like you're looking down on yourself. And that experience is what generates this thing that many people describe as this demon next to them, and the certainty that this thing is going to kill them. Like just the 100% certainty you are dead. And this demonic thing, I know demons don't exist. I knew at the moment that they didn't, but there was a part of my brain that's just like, oh shit, dude. Demons are of course 100% real. You stupid idiot. You dumb idiot. Demons are 100% real, and this motherfucker is gonna eat you, and you cannot move, and it's just gonna eat you from your toes up, and you're dead. And even in the moment, I'm like, dude, you know that you're crazy, and you know that this is a symptom of sleep paralysis. Even though you know that, because it's also nightmare logic, you're also 100% convinced of the opposite, that there is a thing that is going to kill you. So I now, again, I'm like, oh yeah, you can believe things that you even are certain that you cannot, if you are in the right sort of framing. And that is the story of sleep paralysis, which, again, I've only experienced twice, like 7-8 years ago, and only had the awful experience that a demon that I knew factually not to exist, but the certainty that it was going to consume me, that only happened that one time. And I know absolutely now, of course, that there is no such thing. It is just a product of that. But your brain's weird, dog. It's real weird, and when it's not fully under your grasp, as whatever that means, as much as your mind can ever be under your conscious grasp, what is the difference? Well, when your consciousness is disconnected from your mind, unbelievably trippy shit can happen, and explains a lot. All right, so Bet J and Tom A both saying Wheats is their guy. That's so nice of you to say. Bet J says, Wheats, what are your thoughts on Stanley K? Ooh, you got me talking. Okay, in addition to Bet J, you claiming the next bag, you would have earned it for asking a fun question. Tony asking about Alice in Wonderland syndrome. Did I perceive objects as bigger or smaller than they really were? Kind of, but it mostly just focused on my own body, like my own physical body, not like the other things around me, but like literally, I like Ant-Man style, just shriveling up into a tiny little point, and then expanding out and expanding past points that are even physically possible, like the edges of your bed, just feeling like your body is growing. I kind of had awareness of other things around me, like maybe the bed was expanding too, but I don't really remember. Just the sensation of yourself, to use another Marvel metaphor, like Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, just stretching, best as I can describe it. Okay. Celtic Tech, that's so interesting. I didn't hear about that with UK. It makes some semblance of sense. interesting about New Zealand and Australia with their. Yeah, I did remember now about New Zealand coming up short. We did the same thing in California, but we eventually came around. And I knew New Zealand loves their direct referendums. I don't know how long it has to be before they can bring one up again, but my guess is attitudes change. Well, not as quickly as here as they do in the States. They change fast, and if New Zealand brings it up again, fingers crossed. Okay. Bet J says, always hear my brother. Well, thanks, I think. Unless I'm misinterpreting who you were speaking to. Let's go get this bag for you and then answer your Stanley Kubrick question. Do I like Stanley Kubrick movies? Do I like Stanley Kubrick movies? The first Stanley Kubrick movie I saw was Eyes Wide Shut, pretty quickly after it came out. I watched many portions, small portions of that movie, many times. Many times. But I've only watched the thing to completion maybe twice, and not in many years. But it's a weird introduction to your. Oh, I'm doing the angry mom pose again. Look at that. As Gonzo Baptist pointed out so long ago, so astutely. Back to Kubrick. Yeah, Kubrick. My first Kubrick movie, Eyes Wide Shut. Weird one. I was probably in like 8th grade, I think, when I saw Eyes Wide Shut. And thoroughly did not get it. Even if I was very intrigued to keep watching. And then I didn't really get to Kubrick. Oh, I of course watched The Shining in high school, and because I was such a huge Stephen King fan as like a middle schooler, there was a time, I mean, I was like a Stephen King completionist as like a late elementary, early middle school kind of kid, just read everything. Because I was a Stephen King fan and I knew how much he hated The Shining, I was kind of prejudiced against it, but I still enjoyed it. And then it took me a long time before I saw your 2001s, your FMJs, I've never seen Barry Lyndon and have no interest in ever seeing it. What else am I forgetting? Can't remember. We slaughter a lot of sacred calves, movie sacred calves here, especially really beloved ones. And I promise I am not a contrarian. I'm not. I love loving things. But Stanley Kubrick movies have never. I have enjoyed watching all of them and have no desire to watch any of them ever again. It is the same problem I have with all guys that are, and don't mean to disparage or impugn his legacy or whatever, but people who focus on style first. We were talking about Tony Scott the other day, yesterday I think, because of Top Gun, and his the king of style over substance. Not that I'm comparing Stanley Kubrick to Tony Scott, but people are hyper. The hyper attention to aesthetic over everything else just never has appealed to me, and like I just. There's a cold impenetrability to things, obvious. I mean, not that I'm the only. Everybody makes, says, 2001 doesn't make sense. Obviously, that's the thing about it. But, like, there's, like, this almost calculated sense of, like, it's a very David Lynchian, like, this thing is going to defy any sort of coherent reading of it, and that's kind of LOL the point. Or see a modern Paul Thomas Anderson movie, not a Boogie Nights, but a The Master. Like, I don't know. I love Stanley Kubrick, I guess. I've seen Eyes Wide Shut twice. So yes, Stanley Kubrick, good dude. Pour one out. I think he was actually supposed to be an asshole, but he's dead, long dead. And sad. He also worked apparently way more on the movie AI, the nominally Spielberg blockbuster disaster from 2002, 2001. With this Sixth Sense kid, Haley Joel Osment, where he wants to be a real boy. That was like, apparently, it was always going to be like a collaboration between Spielberg and Kubrick, which seems so weird now. But apparently Kubrick worked more on it than people thought, and the terrible ending that everybody hates is apparently Kubrick's fault and not Spielberg's. And you know what? I say, that makes perfect fucking sense to me. Of course, Spielberg isn't gonna fuck up the ending. A frustrating, ambiguous. Although I kind of do like the ending to AI. Ending. Of course, that's gonna be a Kubrick special. Anyways, smoke one for Stanley and one for Fet J. This is for you. Okay. Oh, Tom, Dr. Strangelove. Yes, I forgot about Dr. Strangelove. Yeehaw. And I think Dr. Strangelove is one of the maybe my favorite, because it's funny at times. It can be real funny, and I like the funny stuff. Like, it's back when he was like, oh yeah, you can make more than just shit look cool. Because it did look cool, too. Stanley Kubrick, pour one out for Fet J and Stanley. Tony Dace is to say, Tony says, I don't think Eyes Wide Shut or any Stanley Kubrick film is to be taken literally. I think I agree with you. It's weird we bring this up, I guess, just because of how circular all our discussions are. A stream ago, maybe 2 streams ago, I bitched a lot about the movie Men, which just came out, because I don't like movies that work only on an allegorical level. I need a movie that works both as an allegory and as something that you can believe as a character with people who have motivations that are grounded in the rules of the plot and fiction, and that isn't, like, how is an allegory not just didactic? Like, if it's purely allegorical, I feel like I'm getting paid for the director to teach me something, which it's fine. I love learning shit too, but at least don't go with the explicit purpose of like, I'm gonna educate your dumbass and I'm gonna use some characters and pictures to do it. Tell me a story that is grounded in something. And it doesn't have to be our set of rules, whatever the rules of the fiction are. And so that everybody has proper motivations and things feel like that you don't just get lost in the director trying to, explain whatever it is their metaphor is grasping for. I just don't like that. But that's me. Stanley Kubrick, obviously, you should listen to me over every other human being alive. I'm the one who knows what they're talking about. Not true. Don't listen to me. Anyways, BetJ says, what do you think about him down after 4 months after he sent in the film Eyes Wide Shut? Or, yes, I know there's a complicated and, sort of fun chronology about Eyes Wide Shut and when he died and how it all got edited and put together. But I don't know enough to comment on it, even though I should look, because I'm sure you're right. It's very fun. Tony says, talking about The Shining, says that there are examples of Native American genocide themes in The Shining. Here, Tony, I have some really fun and wild things to tie together like 3 streams all at one time and also give you an incredible recommendation. There is a really fascinating director, documentarian, but on the fringes of what you would describe as a traditional documentarian. And I think he only has 3 movies to his name, but they're all great in their own way. His first one is his most successful, and I think it's called Room 234. Let me double check. This is a documentary. Oh, sorry, Room 237. Obviously, it's the name of the one with the bathtub lady, I think, in it in the movie. The documentary is called Room 237. I love it a lot. It is a documentary about people who have each. It's like, I can't remember, maybe 8 different subjects, and they all talk about their theory for what The Shining is. And then the director, by the name of, while I look this up, Rodney Asher, puts those theories to a bunch of images. And one of those theories does deal prominently with the themes of Native American genocide. The documentary is fascinating, both as listening to these people's theories of what they think The Shining means, and also sort of as a meta thing on what Mr. Asher is doing about people using movies as a way to, I don't know, it's kind of nuanced what he's doing. You think it's hard to know what his ultimate point of view about any of these people or their theories are. The documentary vacillates in tone, not because he's speaking, but because of the subjects or the people he's talking to, or maybe the images he's choosing. That these people are have some sense that they're illuminated, that they've unlocked something, and that these people are also just total cranks, and they're seeing things that aren't there or not meant to be perceived in this. It is totally fascinating. I think he does a very good job of letting the people speak for themselves. And again, it works on both levels as like, wow, that is totally interesting. I can't believe, somebody pieced this all together from the things that are in here. And you're like, I wonder if that might have some veracity to, wow, that's some real tea leaf reading. So that's one interesting thing. I totally recommend that documentary. Again, Room 237. And a truly weird coincidence is the guy's next documentary, also very good, is a documentary very similarly arranged, like just talking to several people who have all experienced something, have something in common. They tell their stories, and he puts those stories to images. And that documentary is called The Nightmare, and it is about sleep paralysis, what we were just talking about. He has a documentary about people who have had it, their experiences with it, and of course he adds some imagery. And it is fascinating and 100% worth watching. Again, that is called The Nightmare. And then last year, I think, he had his third documentary that just released. One that I also really love. I think it's a little less liked than his other two. Of course, it's one that I'm going to love, and why it's great to bring up here is because it's one of our favorite themes. It's, the idea of reality writ large. And the documentary is called A Glitch in the Matrix, where he interviews lots of people who don't believe that believe in some version of this simulation hypothesis, that they don't actually exist, that the world that they live in, or it's not that they don't exist, but that the world that they live in doesn't truly exist, that they live in a simulation and things aren't as they seem. It's called A Glitch in the Matrix. It's great. It's wonderful. He also does he's got his format down, talking to several people about their theories, and then adding some kind of imagery to it. This time, like maybe using avatars, like CGI avatars over people as the talking heads. It's really interesting. It's maybe the broadest in sort of scope as to the subjects he talks to and their theories, but it's also just as interesting. Called A Glitch in the Matrix. Again, those are all by Rodney Asher, which was so fun to talk about, all three of those documentaries, and how we were able to connect some real dots, full circle there. Anyways, Celtic Tech recommends Interstellar, the Nolan movie from 2013, 2014. Good old time dilation movie. Still not sure how I feel about the conclusion that love is the foundation of the universe or something. It lost me at the end, but the other kind of stuff was like, oh yeah, time dilation's always fun, and it's cool to see it tackled in another visual aesthetic mastermind's playground. Haven't seen it since it came out. Interstellar. It'd be fun to check out again. Tom and Tony both concurring that we are whores to the elite. I think depending on one's definition of both whore and elite, seems indisputably true that we are, at least in some way, hitched to their fates as well, which, we rent our bodies and our minds and our time out to them for wages, salaries. That seems very whorish, to use your choice of words. So can't complain with that. You're welcome for the recommendation, Tony, and I hope you check it out, Tom. Later, Tom. And Celtic Tech says, I would do an edible before you watch it. Yes, always. I'm sure it will make it more interesting. Been fun hanging out. I actually have to finish this bag, and as I said, I do actually have to go after this. I've got to get stuff ready for Joshua Tree this weekend, which is why I also will not be here for the next probably 4 days, but maybe I'll be here on Monday. I hope to be, but probably not. So, this was Felt J's bag. Let's get through it. Almost there. Awesome. Wonderful. Okay, guys, that's going to do it for me. Been fun hanging out. Been fun talking movies, as always. I'll be gone for a bit, but I'll see everybody back next weekend.